We all know about the Cathedral. What was once an obscure political theory is now mainstream after the US election. Now you hear about it everywhere. Tim Pool, Sargon, Steve Bannon, everyone knows about it. The Cathedral is real. So I thought I'd do another lore video, provide you guys the origin story of the Cathedral, at least in America. The Cathedral exists in many other countries, obviously, but I don't know everything about it everywhere. So if you're interested in some deep lore in the American Cathedral, I can provide. I've used this meme in a lot of my videos. This is supposed to represent Globohomo. That's an acronym for globalization and homogenization. The term Globohomo, I believe, was created by the alt-right. It criticized Western elite culture, which is sought to make everything the same throughout the West. While this makes it easy for elites to travel around in luxury, it destroys culture in the process. The name Globohomo is also a clever double entendre. A great example of global homogenization is gay rights. After SCOTUS found a constitutional right to sodomy and later gay marriage, the entire Western world immediately adopted these same rights. Really? How does the constitution of so many different countries all secretly protect gay rights? It seems like if judges and lawyers were actually doing their jobs, this wouldn't be the case. I don't know exactly when and where Globohomo came into existence. I do know the US ended up getting caught up in it thanks to Teddy Roosevelt. During the McKinley administration, Roosevelt was Assistant Secretary of Navy. One day when the Secretary of Navy, John Long, left to go eat lunch, Roosevelt ordered the Navy to invade Cuba. This was the beginning of the Spanish-American War. It was the origin of the American Empire. Teddy Roosevelt was one of the original progressives. Now, I've said some good things about the original progressives. Specifically, I said I believe they proposed some good reforms of capitalism, specifically antitrust, labor unions, and basic environmental regulations. I stand by these things as being good policy. Yet the original progressives also had a lot of downsides. They were imperialists. They also believed in racial science and eugenics. A lot of the justification for the sort of imperialism they advocated for was a genetic inferiority of the people they conquered. During World War II, Hitler emerged as a sort of warped progressive leader. He supported a lot of progressive policies. For example, Hitler was a vegetarian. He also bought heavily into the racial science and imperialism. In fact, the only progressive idea that Hitler rejected was globalism. He was a staunch nationalist. The US at the time was on similar footing. It was economically progressive. Nationalism was very popular. In only two ways did the US differ from Nazi Germany. First, racial science was no longer a popular theory in America. Second, America had zero interest in imperialism. Support for American imperialism had dwindled since the Spanish-American War. America ended up winning World War II. It saw the things that Japan and Germany had done during the war. It vowed not to let these things ever happen again. As a country that hated race, science, and imperialism, America condemned these things. It made sure that Japan and Germany were called out for being racist. It also coerced all other empires to grant independence to their colonies. America, being nationalist and anti-imperialist, freed Japan and Germany. At the same time, military bases were installed everywhere to promote America's national interest. America freed its own largest colony, the Philippines. In the post-war economy, progressive economics remained the status quo. So what about the Cathedral? Okay, here's the origin of the Cathedral. After World War II, a lot of prominent people wanted to fundamentally change America. The Constitution no longer mattered. They wanted to prevent someone like Hitler from ever rising to power in America, no matter what. To these people, the most important thing was never Hitler. In other words, no political principle or belief these people adopted was important enough not to be violated if it led to someone who bore superficial similarities to Hitler from taking power. So who are these people? The three people who created the Cathedral were Karl Popper, Milton Friedman, and Friedrich Hayek. The Cathedral is the name Mencius Moldbug came up with. Popper, Friedman, and Hayek, though, called it the Open Society. The Open Society as a political concept was the second principle of the Cathedral. Everything should be open as possible. Open morality. Everyone can choose their own system of what's right and wrong. Borders should be wide open. Free speech should be tolerated to the fullest extent possible. Of course, it should include hardcore pornography. Even things like marriages are better left fully open. The problem is when everything is open, the world becomes a very boring and predictable place. The Cathedral wants people to be bugmen, another alt-right term, people who are defined only by their self-interest. Life is all about careerism and making money. That money ought to be used only for hedonistic purposes. Popper, Friedman, and Hayek were deeply suspicious of people who put other things above their animal appetites. Nationalism, religion, and family were viewed as threats that could lead to a new fascism. The Cathedral's quest for an open society was always secondary. The number one goal was always anti-fascism. Any open society principle would always be sacrificed immediately if it meant deplatforming or harassing a potential fascist. This is the origin of red pills. A lot of people talk about the double standard. Left-wing person does this, right-wing person does the same thing, except they face consequences for it. When this happens, it's a red pill. The open society is the origin of red pills. So let me explain how this worked. BLM riots over the summer. They loot buildings. They burn several stores to the ground. Over 20 people are killed. They're celebrated by the Cathedral. Their voices need to be heard. The right, meanwhile, protests at the Capitol building. There's zero violence on behalf of the right. We get slandered as white supremacist terrorists. Our voices need to be silenced. They're launching a full 9/11 style commission. Why the double standard? Well, the first principle is anti-fascism. Since the right believes in something bigger than identity groups or self-interest, we're viewed as potential fascists. That means we can never benefit from the open society. Since BLM aren't potential fascists, the open society permits anything that they want to do. Of course, this hypocrisy doesn't go unnoticed by the average person. Red pills are the Achilles heel of the Cathedral. So as time goes on, Karl Popper's views became the guiding force behind the Cathedral. Meanwhile, Friedman and Hayek's views became the consensus behind the neoliberals. Both institutions support globalism and identity politics. The only division is the Cathedral is very sympathetic to socialism, while the neoliberals reject it. As time has gone on, these founders have faded from view, yet others have emerged to take their place. Ayn Rand became a fill-in for the neoliberals. Paul Ryan required his staff to read her garbage books. Friends, you know, I could become the new Ayn Rand. All I'd have to do is write fictional books where everyone who isn't a neocon is an idiot loser. On the left, we have George Soros, a student of Karl Popper. He literally named his organization the Open Society Project. No one has done more to fund and support Antifa than George Soros. Remember, the number one goal of the Cathedral, aka the Open Society, is anti-fascism. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for this video. Please support small YouTube channels like mine by subscribing. Also, check me out on Gab. There's exclusive videos there, including a Vosh response I just posted the other day. Once again, thanks for watching my content.